Good afternoon. My name is Father Mike Dekowitz, and I am the director of the Addiction Recovery Ministry. I apologize for the past few weeks you've had some repeats because of the Easter holidays. I haven't been able to do this. So we're going to get back today by looking at Tradition 8 in 12-step recovery. Let me read for you what Tradition 8 says. It says, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. That is what Step 8 says. You know, one of the core tenets of any 12-step recovery program is the idea of service. That an important part of any recovery program is a commitment to service. Service nurtures humility. Service builds community. Service fosters responsibility. Service builds self-esteem. For the one who is suffering, this call to service helps them to come out of themselves. Just making coffee, just cleaning up the rooms, just putting stuff away, which everyone is expected to do, builds a sense of humility and community, because this work is done for the entire group of others. And the one who is to provide service needs to be responsible. If you're the one who is expected to make the coffee, to put out the snacks, to put up the chairs, that means you have to be responsible. You need to be at the meeting. You need to be there in time to do what you are asked to do, because your act of service, no matter how humble, is important for the functioning of the entire group. Whether you are a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, a bishop, you may be accountable for making the coffee, for putting the chairs up. That's your job. That's your responsibility. You're accepted to be responsible, because in doing your job, you're assisting in the sense of building a community, because the work is done not for you, but for the entire group. The one who gives that service has to be the one who is responsible for doing that service, so that the group can meet. And this act of responsibility is often the very first time in someone's life and ages they have been expected to be accountable and responsible for their actions, being accountable and responsible in little things. Nurtures and nourishes the possibility of being accountable and responsible for larger things. It builds a sense of self-esteem. You realize after a while you can get there on time. You can make the coffee. You can have it ready. That builds a sense of self-esteem, that you are learning to be responsible for at least one thing in your life. In the one who is charged with that service, that active responsibility is essential to their recovery. Remember, 12-step recovery is about honesty. It's about humility. It's about service. All of those demand responsibility and maturity. 12-step recovery is about reaching out to each other, sharing our story, while never dictating, but always being open, being tolerant, and being generous. Listening to the one who is struggling and suffering. Probably the most important service we do in 12-step recovery is to be active listeners. We are called to reach out to each other first by actively listening to their story. Never correcting or dictating their story. That's their story. That's their life. We are commissioned to always be open. Be open to each other, to be tolerant of each other. There'll be people in the group with whom we don't share their values. But we have no right to judge. We do have a responsibility to be tolerant and generous as we listen to the one who is struggling. In doing that service, we create an environment where we can feel free enough to share our story honestly, to share our story with humility. Our primary service is to create within that group an environment where each struggler feels safe to share their story and to know they'll be accepted and loved. Now, don't confuse 12-step recovery with group therapy. It is not group therapy. It is not. It's one drunk or one addict sharing their story with another drunk, another addict. That way they know what each other is feeling. They are sharing the healing they have with each other. But 12-step recovery does encourage the need and the use of a professional therapist at times, a social worker or a medical doctor. Oftentimes, people in recovery also go into therapy. That's perfectly acceptable to see a therapist, to work with a social worker, or even a medical doctor. 12-step groups may be in possession of a place where they meet. And so they may have to employ people who maintain that place. There are some places like the Kimball Club here in Pittsburgh, or other clubs, what I'm trying to develop here, the Matthew Talbert Center, where you need to have employees. And there's someone who cleans the floor, cleans the bathrooms, professional people, people who take care of the mailing. There's nothing wrong with hiring some professionals to take care of the maintenance of the structure. Also, the main office downtown here in Pittsburgh and the main office in New York needs special workers, needs people to open the phone, do the schedules, take care of the finances. But always remember, the 12-step recovery is about one thing and one thing only. 12-step recovery is about one sufferer helping another sufferer. That is what is most essential in 12-step recovery. Remember what service is. Remember how valuable service is. That service nurtures humility. That service builds community. That service fosters responsibility. That service builds self-esteem. Now let's close together by saying the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'll see you next week when we're looking at Tradition 9. Goodbye and God bless.